Hey there, welcome back to the Free Black Women's Library YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you for liking this video, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back to the antics of the Free Black Women's Library. Thank you so much for being here. It is June. Yes, we are in the month of June, and here in New York, for the entire month of June, we celebrate Pride, a deeper love, pride, a deeper love, pride, a deeper love, whoa, 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 whoa. Yes, June is also known as Pride Month. This is the time of year when we highlight, celebrate, illuminate, amplify, center the voices and the lives of LGBTQIA folks, right? So it's not just about umbrellas, it's not just about parades, it's not just about parties, although we love all that stuff too. But it's also about taking note of the struggles that LGBTQIA people face in this country, which is inherently queerphobic and inherently homophobic. And it's also about taking note of the progress that our ancestors and our cultural icons have made to make this world a safer place for us when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to housing, when it comes to education, when it comes to general safety. So we think about folks like James Baldwin, we think about folks like Audre Lorde, but we also think about folks like Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, right? So we think about the Stonewall riots. All these things, if they sound unfamiliar to you, get to your Googling and, read about these folks. If all of this sounds very familiar to you, that's awesome. We're on the same page. So it's Pride Month, and I thought it would be fun to just do some Rambly reactions to some works that have been very relevant and very iconic and very specifically centering LGBTQIA plus characters in film, in TV, in books. So I'm talking about a film today. I'm talking about a film called PARIAH. Now, PARIAH is currently streaming on Netflix, so if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. Especially if you're the type of person who's not into spoilers, because I will be talking about the plot in detail. I'll be talking about the characters. I'll be talking about the themes explored, what I liked, what I didn't like. Does it stand up to the test of time? Etc., etc., etc. So that is my long-winded way of saying spoilers ahead, okay? And if you have seen it, awesome. Let me know your thoughts in comments. Like, leave me a comment letting me know what you think. If you disagree with anything that I say, I would love to know that too. I'm open, and I am definitely open to being challenged on my opinions, having my opinions interrogated, contradicted, etc., and so forth. So anywho, let's get into this video. I have rambled enough, but anyone who watches my channel knows that that's part of my charm, I guess. PARIAH. Now, PARIAH started out as a short film and then expanded into a feature, and it was released in 2011, so 10 years ago. And I remember seeing it at BAM, which is a really popular cinema space in downtown Brooklyn. And I remember feeling deeply moved, deeply inspired, really touched by this story. I think it was the first time in my life that I had ever seen a dark-skinned Black woman, queer, lesbian character centered in a film, and the acting was just so beautiful. The story was really deep and really intense, but it was also very simple, and I just really felt it all in my bones. Like, I felt like a sense of almost as if I was seeing parts of myself on screen, and that was a big deal for me at that time. And it's still a big deal now, because it still doesn't happen that much, right? But I am really, I'm really moved by this specific work, and I'm glad that it's on Netflix, and hopefully more people are discovering it. Maybe more people will discover it because of this video. Who knows? We shall see. So it's written and directed by a woman named Dee Rees, who has gone on to do a couple other works. She did something called Mudbound that Mary J. Blige was in. She did excuse me, a biopic called Bessie that starred the cultural icon Queen Latifah, which I'm thinking I might do a video about later on if I can find it online, because I remember really liking that movie, especially the costume design and the set design. But either way, Pariah is her first film, and it is a coming of age story. It takes place in New York City, and the central character is a 17-year-old girl named Alike. Now, Alike also goes by Lee, so I'll be using those two names interchangeably. And Alike comes from what looks like visually a pretty stable, solid home environment, right? She's got her mom, she's got her dad, she's got a little sister. So it makes there's this like sense of like, oh, she must have it, you know, things must be good for her because she's in a stable home environment. It's a double income family because mom has a job working at a hospital. Dad is a police detective. She's got the annoying little sister. So everything's pretty okie dokie, hunky dory, and fine. But no, this is an extremely unhappy home. Looks are often not what they seem. And one would think, oh, two-parent household, living in a nice house, having both your parents, that means that you have access to love and you have access to support and you have access to attention, but that's not the case here. Alika's mom is struggling with a lot of issues, right? So Alike is played by Adepero Ojuye, and Adepero absolutely shines in this role. Like, she is captivating, she is intense, and she truly embodies that kind of awkward, want to be cool, trying to figure myself out. I love my parents, but I hate my parents. Just like all those different angsty, like that moody teen angst. She embodies it so well. Part of what I love about this movie is the acting. So Adepero plays a 17-year-old, and I think she was probably in her 20s when she played this role, which is also incredible. Black don't crack, right? She looks like a 17-year-old, and her mom is played by Kim Wayans. One of the things that really jumped out when this film screened is the fact that Kim Wayans at this time was known for her comedic acting because she was on a skit comedy show called In Living Color, right? She's one of the Wayans crew. Like, there's like 12 of them, and they're all hilarious. And Kim Wayans was so funny. And in this particular role, she's not funny at all, okay? This is a very dramatic role. And just like Adepero embodying that like angsty, moody, sad 17-year-old, like Kim Wayans, who plays Audrey Freeman, the mom, she also embodies this bitter, sad, resentful, angry, mean, kind of cold mother. And it's their chemistry is really incredible. There's a lot of moments between them that I really appreciated then, and I appreciate them even more now that I have actually parented a teenager. There are some aspects of that mom that I kind of understand, but at the end of the day, I still place her under the umbrella of villain. So when we first meet Alike, also known as Lee, she's in the club with Laura, her best friend, who's played by the brilliant Pernell Walker. And we see them, and we can already see that they are lesbians, right? It's a strip club. Laura's throwing up dollar bills at the stripper. And they are dressed very boyish, right? Very mannish. One might even say that they're masculine of center, or butch lesbians, because they've got the jeans, they're rocking the boots, they're rocking like do-rag caps and baseball, do-rag with a baseball cap on top, big old shirts, you know, not showing their bodies. So they're giving like AG energy, right? But they're teenagers, so they're little baby AGs. And we see them talking, kind of teasing each other, like, how many numbers did you get? How many numbers did you get at the end of the night when it's time to go? Because Alika's like, has a curfew. And they're riding the bus home, and Alika makes sure that Laura gets off the bus, even though Laura wants to ride home with her. And we find out that part of the reason why she wants Laura off the bus is so that she can change, because she can't go home looking the way she does. She takes off her baseball cap, she takes off her do-rag, she takes off her shirt, and underneath she's got this pink t-shirt on that says angel in sparkly letters. She puts her earrings on, so she's got a whole different look. So she gets in the house, and it's not so much about not wanting the mom to see her, but it's also because she's like late for a curfew. So she tries to sneak in her room, and she gets called out by her little sister Sharonda, because that's what little sisters do. Let me take a sip of my strawberry smoothie. So we see that Alika and Audrey, they have tension between them, right? Audrey does not like that Alika and Laura are friends. She thinks that Laura is a bad influence. She doesn't like the whole kind of tomboy, butchy look that Alika is experimenting with. And she's basically afraid that Alika is a lesbian. She never says it outright, but throughout the film, she says different things, kind of like hinting to her husband that there's a problem. Like, you need to talk to Alika about the way she dresses. You need to talk to her, etc., etc. And unfortunately, Alika's dad, Arthur, outside of being a police detective, is also having an affair. And this is another thing that's never said out loud, right? It's just kind of hinted at, and there's subtle things that happen. Like, he has these secret phone calls, and he's always out all night, and he tries to pretend like he's at work, and he also doesn't show his wife any affection whatsoever. Like, there's not one moment in the film where he tells her she looks nice. Like, he's not even eating her food. Like, she makes him these plates. She's performing the role of the dutiful wife. She makes him plates to eat. She tries to look pretty for him. And he's just like, he don't see it for her at all. So even though Alika's father is much more, is a lot warmer towards her, he's still not a good guy. So I wasn't feeling him either. So both these parents kind of suck, right? And one day they're at church. It's Alika, her mom, and her sister. And Alika's mom gets into a conversation with this woman that she works with. And it turns out that she has a daughter named Bina. And they all live in the same neighborhood. So Audrey sets up this whole awkward situation where she's like, oh, you and Bina should start walking to school together. You and Bina should hang out. You and Bina should be friends. Because she thinks that Bina would be a good influence on her. She doesn't want her hanging out with Laura. And it's like, Laura's not the reason why your daughter dresses the way she does. Laura's not the reason why your daughter is a lesbian, and you know it. It is not Laura's fault. So putting on her is not fair. Although I'm not mad at the idea of encouraging your daughter to make new friends and have a diverse group of friends. But the idea of like demonizing this other girl that has been friends with your daughter for so long, I wasn't feeling that. So as you can see, I don't really like the parents in this, but I'm not saying that I don't like the film or like what they represent is what I don't like. The acting is perfect. The characters are perfectly drawn out. They're very round and very, very well done. But this type of energy in real life is the worst. So anyway, Bina and Alike begrudgingly start walking together. And at first, there's like a tension between them because Alike's like, my mom is making me do this. But then they start to warm up to each other and they start to become friends. And then they become more than friends, right? Bina pushes up on Alike at one point because she knows that Alike is lesbian. She knows Alike likes girls. Like, it's pretty apparent to her anyway. She makes her move. She gives her a kiss. Alike freaks out and leaves, but then they end up having sex, right? Because Alike spends the night. They go to a party. They have an amazing time. And then that same night, they end up having sex. Like, this is now her first time, right? This is her first time being kissed. This is her first time having an intimate moment with another person, right? Up until this point, she was a virgin, very naive, very clueless, wanted to appear as like a stud, even to the point where she asked Laura to buy her a dildo to wear around, like with a whole harness and everything. Like, she wears boxers. So she's coming into her identity and she's trying to figure things out, and she's, you know, just clueless. She's naive. And Bina pops her cherry. So she wakes up the next day in Bina's bed, and Bina's like cleaning up, looking all angry, looking all mean, looking annoyed, looking impatient. And she's like, what's going on? And Bina gives her the cold shoulder, like, last night really meant nothing. I'm not gay. Don't tell anybody about what happened between us. So Alike is like super hurt because she realized that she was building up this whole fantasy in her mind about Bina being her girlfriend, and that was not the case. She goes home, she goes off on her mom, and she ends up having a tantrum. And then dad comes home later. Like, there's this one point where mom says, wait till your dad gets home. And I'm like, child, if you're a mom and you find yourself saying, wait till your dad gets home to your child, I'm sorry, but you're definitely doing something wrong, because you shouldn't need, like, the presence of the father for you to have a moment of, like, discipline or respect from your kid, right? And also, this particular dad is not coming home. Like, he's out there doing his own thing, so you need to do your own thing and figure out how to handle and, like, work on this relationship with your kid, right? And there's another scene that I really appreciated where Alike is sitting with her mom and she's like doing her hair, and she says, you should wear your hair down. And she says, your dad likes it up. And Alike says, it looks better down. And as I said before, the chemistry between Kim Wayans and Ade Pero is so beautiful. And we get to see this really nice quiet moment between mother and daughter. And it's just unfortunate that that doesn't extend into the rest of the movie, but it's about making a point. And the point is that Alike's mom is homophobic. She's very Christian, she's very religious, and she's very hateful towards queer folks. And it's very sad. So then we get to the point where she ends up outing herself, right? Because after the whole situation with Bina, dad finally does come home, and mom is complaining to dad, and she says to him, like, you need to talk to her, this tomboyish phase, all these things that are going on in the world, like, something needs to happen. And they start arguing because dad is also in denial. Alike comes downstairs and she tells them, I'm gay, I'm a lesbian. And her mom starts wailing on her. Wailing on her, wailing on her, wailing on her, abusing her, beating on her. And dad pulls her off, and Alike leaves the house, and she never comes back. She goes and she stays with Laura, and she never comes back for the rest of the film. And it makes sense, because why would you go somewhere where people are going to beat you for who you are, right? So part of the goodness that takes place is that Alike, also known as Lee, decides for herself how she's going to live her life, find her freedom, own her identity and be who she is. It's really beautiful to see her read a poem in the very last scene, because she gets accepted into this early college program where she gets to go away to California, be on campus for the summer, and so she can start school in the fall. And she says she's not running, she's choosing, right? She says it to her dad because her dad's like, you can come back home, things will get better, your mom loves you, etc., etc. And she's just like, I'm going to do this early college program and I'm not running, I'm choosing. Like, she's not leaving out of fear, she's not leaving out of shame, she's leaving because this is the best situation for her. This is a way for her to find her freedom, to find her liberation, to find her safety. Like, living with her homophobic mom who's in denial, who's mean and violent and manipulative, living with her cheating ass dad who's just on some real shady stuff and treating her mom like crap. Like, it's not, she's like, that's not for me, I'm out, right? So that's the main story. And then there's a secondary story with Laura, her best friend, who is not in school but is studying to get her GED and is dealing with the idea of like being cash poor, right? Laura's working, I think, at a restaurant or a diner, and she's living with her sister, and their mom is off somewhere else, right? And so we get this one scene where Laura gets a notice from the GED folks that she passed her GED. So she goes to visit her mom and she shows it to her, like, you know, I passed my GED. I got my GED. I passed the test. And her mom closes the door in her face, and it's just like, ooh, heartbreaking. So you're dealing with these two characters. You're dealing with Laura and you're dealing with Alike, who have both been rejected by their parents, which is probably one of the worst things in the world. You know, Alike tries to have a moment of reconciliation with her mom where she goes to visit her at work and she's like, I love you, Mom. And she doesn't say I love you back. She says, I'm gonna pray for you. And when that scene happened in theaters, there were people in the theater that were like, like, you heard that, because it was just so sad, right? Just like when the scene when Bina was like, I'm not gay, you heard people in the theater laughing and chuckling. So that's pretty much the movie. And as far as like what I love about it, I mentioned already the acting. The acting is outstanding. Like, every single person really plays their part extremely well. Adepero, Kim, Pernell Walker, who plays Laura, Charles Pernell, who plays the dad. Like, everyone is just impeccable. It's perfectly casted. It's really good chemistry. I love the camera work. I especially love all the close-ups of Adepero's face. I love the close-up of the dad. Like, it's a really quiet, subtle story. It feels very internal. And it's a coming-of-age story, which are usually often quiet, internal type stories. So it really, like, pulls you in. Like, that upfront, in-your-face type of camera work, it really pulls you in. So I really appreciate that. I love the soundtrack and the music. One of the things that bonds Bina and Alike to each other is the fact that they both love different types of music. They're not into like commercial stuff. So that's when they start to soften and warm up to each other. So I do love the music. It features one of my favorite artists, Tamara Kali. Get on that. She's amazing. She's also a composer. Shout out to her. And you know, I do love the story. I love the story. I love that we get to see Alike in the beginning trying to like figure herself out, figure things out, being confused. Should she strap? Should she not strap? You know, she changes clothes when she goes to school and then she changes again when she's leaving. Like, all that stuff. We get to see like the performance of, you know, gayness, lesbianness, butchness. Like, she's really trying to figure out what works for her. She knows what doesn't work for her, which is what her mom wants, the like little pretty girly clothes. So she's trying to figure out what does work for her. So I love witnessing that. And then as far as like the different themes explored, definitely the theme of like denial and performance. Like I don't even know if I'm using like academic language right now, but the pretension that takes place within this family is so like violent and disturbing, but it's something that a lot of people lean into. This whole like, oh, fake it till you make it, and I'm just gonna pretend like we're happy even though we're really not, and maybe at some point we'll be happy. Like that pretension, that role of Alike's mom, Audrey. There's a scene when they're having dinner and Alike has already left and mom and dad are there and Sharonda's there. So it's just the three of them. And Sharonda, little sister, looks over at Alika's empty chair and mom is like, these green beans taste so yummy. And it's like, bitch, like your daughter is missing. You punched her in the face. You screamed at her. You beat on her. And now you want to talk about some green beans? Ciao. So there's like a lot of pretension there. There's a scene when dad comes home from work and mom is lying on the couch and she kind of pretends like she was asleep and she fluffs her hair and she's like, so that theme, I'm going to call it the theme of pretension, the theme of performance, right? Even with the performance of like the wearing the butchy clothes, the baggy jeans, the baseball cap. So there's that. And there's also this idea around like religion being this tool that can often feel very violent for LGBTQIA folks, like the ideas around like what gayness represents, what queerness represents, God doesn't make mistakes is one of the things that Alike says to her dad. Like, you can tell mom that she's right. God doesn't make mistakes. So she's like, yeah, I know who I am. There's nothing wrong with me. And as I said earlier, I really love the line, I'm not running, I'm choosing. Like, it's almost like I'm choosing myself. Like, that poem at the end is so beautiful. She says, I'm broken, opening is breaking, and I'm free, right? So whatever shackles have been placed on me by my mom and like her Bible wielding self, I'm breaking those free. So there's a theme of religion being used as a tool of violence to oppress and abuse. There's a theme of like motherhood and abandonment, turning your back on your kids, which I don't even understand. And like belonging, the theme of found family, similar to what we see in Pose, because Laura and Alike are basically like sisters, right? There's a point when Laura says, I love you, and I just wanted to tell you that. And it was kind of like, does she have a crush on her? And then I said, no, I think it's more like, I love you as a person. I love you as my sister. Like, you mean so much to me, and you matter to me. And I just want to make sure that you know that. So I thought that was a really beautiful scene. And it was nice to know that out of all of the people in Alike's life, that she had Laura. She also had her poetry teacher, which gave us some insight into her character, because early on we see that she doesn't have lunch in the cafeteria. She doesn't really have any friends at school. She's very isolated, and she goes to her teacher's class and she eats lunch there while her teacher is like reading her poems. So Alike's kind of lonely, and I think that Bina takes advantage of that because she's like, I noticed you don't have any friends. But in terms of another theme, which I thought of, and y'all tell me if you feel like I'm wrong about this, but there's also the theme of like a rite of passage for like lesbians. I feel like every lesbian at least once hooks up with a straight girl. And maybe if you do it one time, you kind of know how it feels, and it was kind of good that Alike kind of got it out of her system early, so she didn't have to like deal with that in college. Like, at least she kind of knows how it feels to be with another person intimately, even though Bina is kind of whack. Bina is probably in denial and gay herself, if not bisexual. There's a really quick scene where we see Bina with a boy, and she pushes him off her. So I'm taking that to mean that she's not necessarily into boys, but you know, it was kind of funny because when I first saw this film, I was one of the people who chuckled at what Bina did, but now as a much older person, I didn't really chuckle at it this time. When I watched it, I was just kind of like, Bina's a villain too. I'm like, these are the villains. Alike's mom, Bina, and maybe kind of sort of Alike's dad. But either way, I love this movie. I think it's a beautiful movie. And does it stand up to the test of time? Hell yes. One of the things, my only complaint about this film is like Laura's story is really unclear to me. Like, I don't understand why Laura's not in school. I don't understand why Laura and her sister are not living with her mom. Like, that's not really like explained or clear. But I do appreciate the fact that we see a different family dynamic still ending up in the same situation, right? Because Alike's got both her parents, but she still ends up being pushed out, being abused, being hurt, being traumatized, being rejected. So, you know, and she's got the double income. They have a double income, whereas Laura doesn't have either one of her parents, and she's still like out there flailing on her own. So, you know, I appreciated that kind of juxtaposition, I guess, of them up against each other as far as like their backgrounds, and the fact that they're both kind of dealing with the same situation. So it just goes to show you that, you know, however, what things look like is not what they seem. And I feel like that's one of the main themes of this film. So I feel like I've said everything I wanted to say. I had a whole bunch of notes here and I didn't even look at any of them, but that's what I'm gonna say. So yeah, have you seen the film Pariah? Oh, I said the acting, the camera work. Oh, the poetry. I love the poetry. Shout out to Dee Rees for the beautiful poems that Alike read. And also, I talked about the fact that it's like a dark-skinned character and how important that is. So yeah, these are all my notes, as you can see, about the film. But either way, tell me what you think about Pariah and let me know if you like this movie. I give it a 9.5 out of 10, only because I wanted to know a little bit more about Laura's story and I felt like that was missing. But outside of that, I think it's a really iconic, wonderful movie. So that's all I have to say. Happy Pride to you and thank you for watching. Bye.